Welcome back here to DGOT, the instant reactions. Me and Dustin do a lot of these, so you might as well just make a whole series out of this as well. We're going to be talking about The Rule of Jenny Penn. It's kind of a low-key, under-the-radar kind of movie from IFC Films. I think me and Dustin both have the same story. We both just look at our apps that we have theater subscriptions to, see what's coming out, and we both noticed it, so we went and saw it today. It's got John Lithgow in it and Jeffrey Rush. You probably heard those names, know those actors. I'm really not too familiar with Jeffrey Rush's game because I haven't seen all of those Pirates of the Caribbean movies and all that.
Oh, that's Barbosa.
To no one's surprise right there. But I have seen John Lithgow in some things. I'll just be honest with you. I didn't hate the movie by any means, but at the end of it, when it finally ended, I was kind of like, what was the point of this, really? What about you, Dustin? How do you feel about it? Did you hate it? Or?
I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I thought there was a lot that I liked. I thought the concept was fine. I didn't have that feeling of what was the point of it because I think it's just it's a psychological thriller that has this very bleak tone to it. But towards the end of the movie, I texted you because my movie let out, I think, about 10 minutes. It started 10 minutes later or earlier, so it let out earlier. But I texted you. I was like, man, it just wouldn't end. So, I was the only one in my theater. I took notes while I was watching it, so I've got a lot. I won't go through all the notes that I took, but I definitely have some pros and cons that I feel confident I'll stand by.
Yeah, and when I say what was the point, it was mostly about that doll. Like, I don't know, I kind of thought it might be like supernatural, and then they kept like there were a lot. We're going to spoil this, by the way, so if you're listening, spoiler alert. We had several instances like where John Lithgow's character Dave Creeley is like standing, and then like you see the giant, like this doll, like appear like slowly behind it, like a giant form. Like, what is going on with this thing? Like, that was really just a confusing part to me. But really, it was just on his hand. Like, unless I missed something, it was just there.
Yeah, so that's a good point. The doll, the point of the actual doll is just Lithgow's character asserting this mental manipulation and instilling this terror, like, I rule this place and you're going to do whatever crazy things I say. It's just a mental mind game he's playing, and that's fine. But and then the one time that we see the doll and it's all huge, when it's on the judge's bench and Jeffrey Rush's character, who is a judge, is on the witness stand, is like, okay, that was a nightmare, I think, right? So
yeah,
that's fine. But later in the movie, when it pops up, when the stuff's going down, it's like, so is he having a psychotic break? That is an issue I have, because his character was in this place to rehab from a stroke. And yes, he had, blips, as they called him in the movie. He had these gaps where he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how he got from point A to point B. He thought he was somewhere else. But he didn't have, like, he was still lucid. Like, he didn't have these psychotic breaks. And so, yeah, I agree. That bothered me as well.
All right. Not to get off subject, but I just looked at myself in the mirror or in my video, and it just says Ass Pro. But I got a Bass Pro Shops hat on, but all I see is Ass Pro, and it just threw me off.
I was wondering what you were laughing at. I was like, dang, what'd I say?
No, I just saw it. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. No, I thought Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow gave really good performances, though. I saw a Letterboxd review talking about, like, it brought up The Front Room, like, another movie with old people giving a great performance in a bad movie. I thought both of those gentlemen did a fine job, a very fine job, actually.
Yeah.
But, man, I think that's definitely the biggest part of my qualms. I thought there was a lot of not qualms, but my pros. Another thing I really liked was I thought there were some good camera shots, like the way they spun the camera around on its side. Like, they had some razzle-dazzle to it, and I really appreciate it because it kept me invested, like, watching it. And that man, John Lithgow, we see, I'm just giving everybody a warning. You're going to see a lot of naked old man ass, so you see, if you've been wondering what those two gentlemen's butts look like, there you go. Just tune in. But I genuinely did think the movie it had some creepy, tense moments. And I did think that doll, Jenny Penn, was creepy. Like, I'll give the filmmakers props on that. I did think that doll was very terrifying, to be honest with you. It was, if I saw it in the middle of the night, I would be scared. What'd you think?
Yeah, Jenny Penn the doll was creepy, especially just the hollow eyes. Which is another issue I have is late in the movie, we see the doll who hasn't had eyes the entire time. And Jeffrey Rush's character looks at it and has eyes all of a sudden. Camera cuts back, the eyes are gone. So it's like they were planting seeds for this mental break, but they didn't plant them enough. Like, I don't know. It didn't work. But as far as camera work, you mentioned there's a lot of Dutch angles in the movie, and it worked really well. But I've got a decent amount of pros here we'll get into. So I thought the entire movie was bleak. I mean, this was a very bleak movie. It had a great tone. You just felt like a sense of panic, like, oh God, he's never getting out of here. And if he does, like, it's not good. It's not good. Like, you didn't get this warm, fuzzy feeling like everything's going to be okay, no matter what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Lithgow and Rush, you mentioned, they were both fantastic. Particularly John Lithgow. I mean, how creepy and deranged was he? Just really good stuff there. Something I noticed that I took as a pro because it popped me was James Ashcroft, the writer of the film. He has to be a huge fan of The Lion King, right? And I say that because that first scene when Jeffrey Rush is on the bench, he says a line where he says something like, when lions aren't present, hyenas rule. It's like, okay, Lion King. And then in this rehab center, in this nursing home, whatever you want to call it, there's a guy singing and like playing the guitar, and he sings the same song that Zazu sang when Scar had him locked in the rib cage. I've got the lovely bunch of coconuts, dee. Like, he sang this. So Ashcroft has to be a Lion King fan. Shout out to that. I love how they established that the judge wasn't in his right mind. Like, they did a good job of showing that what he thought was happening wasn't really happening, like establishing his blips or his mental breaks there. Like, for instance, he's meeting with the guy to kind of prove that he's making progress, and he draws a clock, writes all the numbers, draws the arrows pointing to the clock. The first time we see it, it's like, okay, he did it. Good. He slides the paper across the table. The numbers are all over that page. I mean, it was awful. So things like that were fantastic. But that is consistent with, a stroke victim, not a psychotic break like the giant Jenny Penn dolls. So inconsistencies there. Another thing that I'll commend them for is that it was an interesting and original content. I mean, Shudder, that's all we get from them. Like, all we get is originality and fresh ideas and new ways of executing ideas. So shout out to them for that. They took some chances. Not all of them worked, but I appreciate the effort, and I will always commend studios for that.
Oh yeah, I think that I saw at least 2 nods to The Shining as well. First time that the judge woke up, it was 2:37. I mean, come on, if you can use 2:37 in a horror movie, I'm assuming The Shining. And Dave Creeley, John Lithgow's character, he looked like Jack Torrance. That one scene when he runs into the dancing room and he's got the slacks on and he's got that like burgundy, what are those called? Like the little jacket, like buttons up the middle.
Cardigan?
Like, cardigan. I mean, he looked just like, he had Jack Torrance's clothes on. I got definite Shining vibes from it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And one thing I thought
Pull over. No, it's a cardigan. Thanks for noticing.
That's Dumb and Dumber, Nico. I already know.
Yeah.
But anywho, you were right though about the movie being bleak, and it really just kind of opens your eyes to like that's what a lot of our elderly people like. That's their life when they get old. Like and I'm not telling anybody what to do with their money, YOLO it out or nothing. But I mean, if you work your whole life, save up money, but then you end up somewhere like this, I mean, who'd you save the money for? So you gotta have a fine balance there. But man, it really was like let me ask you, do you think some people may be offended with how the elderly people are portrayed in this movie?
Possibly, but I mean, I don't think that this is a typical nursing home. I think
it's definitely like a recovery center.
Yeah.
But they made everybody so kind of like over the top and like helpless. Like, I don't know. I thought I wasn't offended, obviously, but I thought like maybe some people might.
I mean, that's
maybe work in that field, maybe.
Because even his roommate there, the rugby player, like he was the most sound mind person in there, but they made him look like this sniveling little girl. Like he was so weak and scared, which he's been tormented. He had been put through the ringer by Creeley, so I understand, being intimidated by him. But yeah, I get what you're saying there.
Yeah, I think we both definitely have some positives of the films. Do you want to jump into some qualms? I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah. Before I do that, RogerEbert.com. There's only a handful of movie critics that I'll read their reviews and feel like, okay, I trust this because what they're saying lines up with what I see. RogerEbert.com, Roger Ebert, when he was alive, was one of those, except for in regards to horror. He crapped on horror every chance he got. He hated it. I get it. But, now that he's dead, there's a whole staff of people at RogerEbert.com who have a wide perspective on things. Katie Rife wrote the review, and there's some things I agree. Like, she said that it had an overly long runtime, which I agree. I'm gonna get into that in my cons. But she put that it had an uneven tone. I didn't think the tone was uneven at all. I thought it was pretty consistent. Like, even the quote unquote comedy, because there's nothing really funny in it, but Lithgow's character was so over the top at times, but I think that was consistent because he's a maniac. Like, it worked.
Yeah.
So anyway, but as far as my cons, number one, it was too long. Like, we get the fake out finish, but then it just wouldn't end. The scenes that followed weren't bad, but the placement was bad to me because it threw off the pacing of the film. It just felt like the entire third act drug, and
yep.
I didn't feel that way before we get the fake out. When he, like we've already said, we're spoiling it. We've already kind of spoiled some things, but when he takes the inhalers and runs them all out, and we think, oh God, he's killed him. He's done it. After that, it's just like, or up until that point, I thought this is a well-paced movie. Everything is purposeful. It works. But every scene that happened after that was like, come on, wrap this up. And there's a scene where he lets the one crazy lady out and she gets lost and she dies. I thought that was really well shot because he has this, like, it proves that, yep, he's a maniac. He's letting people out and convince them to just go that way and you'll find what you look for. And she dies. And then he realizes there's a sense of panic. He realizes he's got the wrong key card. He's got hers by mistake. So he has to run after. What was the point of it? It didn't amount to anything. They never found her body. It never amounted to anything. The only thing it did was show that when he runs, he needs his inhaler, but he uses his inhaler at other times in the movie that were more smooth, and it didn't need its own standalone scene to prove. I think that a lot of the logic in the movie was bad. This had to be the most useless and worst help staff in history.
Oh my God.
I mean, regardless of, not wanting to believe him because he's had a stroke, he's not in his right mind, okay, whatever. You have to at least look into his claims. And he's a judge. He knows the legal process. He knows, how things work. Why didn't he just have them call the police or something? Say he wanted to press charges, because the police would fingerprint that piss jug when he dumped it on him and say, oh, his fingerprints are on this. Clearly something's up. And so another thing is, I don't know why the judge didn't use his knowledge of the law to get him looked into more. Like, they're not being held against their will in this facility. He is, like, committed there kind of like a hospital because he's rehabbing, but it's not like he's a prisoner. It's not like this is an insane asylum. He never called anyone. We get the feeling that he doesn't have a family or anything, but he has colleagues. He has someone that he knows that he could have called and said, hey, you need to look into this place, particularly this guy. What's going on? I thought that they did a good job of explaining why the staff didn't take his claim seriously, establishing that Creeley has worked there since the 60s or whatever. But still, like, he's a judge for a long time, apparently, and just forgot that there's, ways that you can catch bad guys. What? He seemed to be sharp. He still remembered all these quotes from famous people. He still had his extensive vocabulary, but he couldn't remember that, hey, the cops could probably help me in this situation. So I think a lot of the logic was flawed, and that runtime was just way too long. It was only an hour and 43 minutes, is what IMDb says. But I swear to you, it felt like it was 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, and it's mostly from that third act, like you mentioned, because the beginning was very well paced. But I agree, like, man, this staff is terrible. Like, no disrespect to our nurses and all that who take care of our elderly people. But my God, this guy Creeley is just bouncing around doing things all through these hallways, and they just don't believe anybody with this guy. Like, he's causing havoc every room he's in the dance room, entertainment room, watching TV loud as hell. How did they not see this guy creeping through the hallway? They got cameras up.
Yeah, and okay, that was another thing I wrote in my notes, but I didn't put in my notes for this. I put it in my notes while I was taking during the movie. Is there no cameras in this place? Like,
there are, because remember when he was getting on the elevator, they showed from the camera view.
Yeah. So what? And not only that, it took them so long to respond. Like that scene when he crashes him and then starts undressing the woman very uncomfortably and everything. It took them so long. Like, these people, they're way understaffed, if nothing else.
Or they just got some of the worst workers in the world. I don't know, man. Like, goodness. It was like the staff just really stuck in me how bad and incompetent they were. Maybe since Creeley worked there, like, they just let him do what he wanted.
Maybe. But then again, maybe that's just how New Zealand operates. I don't know. Never been there. So.
Yeah, me neither.
But, and then another thing is when he was, when the judge was sitting there at the table and he's eating and he thinks it's the woman sitting across from him, then because he has a blip and it turns out that Creeley's sitting right across from him. He was in his wheelchair. When he starts kicking him in the shin, why didn't he just back up? What are you doing? You just let him kick you like 5 times. Yeah. Oh, no, Terry. You're too close.
It's like, dude, you just standing there taking it. Moment's getting too big, pissing down your leg.
And not only that, like, I get that no one wants to speak out against Creeley because he holds this power. He's intimidated everyone in this place. But in the dining hall there, you're telling me there's no staff?
I'm telling you.
That's all the patients gathered at one time. At least one staff member needs to be in there, even if it's not to keep stuff like that from happening. What if someone has a medical issue? Someone should have been in there and saw, hey, he's kicking him. The staff.
There's going to be a bunch of staff in there. I mean, there were 50 plus patients in there. One person can't do that alone. And these people are paying good money to be there. Like, the judge is paying to be there.
And it's, it's shown that they bring the food to the people because not everybody can get their own food. And so you're telling me they just drop and go? They're like, here's your food. See you later. Nah.
I really think this is just the issue of a short story getting turned into a full feature film.
Yeah.
I mean, a short story shouldn't be almost 2 hours long. Like, this should have been a crisp 90 minutes, maybe 85. Trim out some of the bloated stuff like we talked about. Because I legitimately thought the movie was over twice and it still kept going.
Yeah. Same.
It's like a dick on a blue chew. You're just like, it's going to keep going. It's like, I mean, hell yeah, brother. But I was like, I really thought the movie was over like after the inhaler and then after folks gets attacked in the damn room by himself. It's like, I don't know what's going on. It's like, okay, we're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And the ending really wasn't satisfactory either.
No, it wasn't, because it's like, okay, the judge and his rugby player, this is terrible. I don't have their character names, but it is Stefan and I don't know who his roommate was. Would that have been Sonny Osage?
I think so.
I don't know. Oh, no, it was Tony. It was Tony Garfield.
Yeah, Garfield. That's right.
Yeah, Tony Garfield. So when Stefan and Tony, killed him, when they won, you're telling me that it was just business as usual? The cops in New Zealand don't even look into murders? Because he clearly was murdered. They found a body in a laundry room that no one ever uses.
Yeah.
They had to have found it at least. They don't show them finding it. Maybe they found it after, days after we see the ending. I don't know. But
all I know is don't get murdered in New Zealand and don't get put into a assisted living facility in New Zealand because I'm not very impressed with their resources over there. No disrespect to our New Zealanders. I'm sure this is just a mockumentary kind of thing, but they didn't impress me. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Dustin, you got any final thoughts? I'm what would you? I haven't rated on Letterboxd. What are you thinking?
I haven't either. I saw 2 movies today. I saw this and Mickey 17. As soon as Mickey 17 finished, I logged it. Like I rushed to Letterboxd to log it. This one I still haven't. And I've been home for, I don't know, an hour. So I'm still stewing on it, but I think I'm in the 3 out of 5 range because I didn't hate it and it had a lot of issues, but it also had a lot of things that were good, particularly Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush. So I think I'm in the 3 out of 5 range.
I know I sent you that meme on TikTok a while back, that Timothy Chalamet where you're like debating between, and you got, you're making the face. I don't know. I'm at that 2.5 to 3 range too, because I really did enjoy the first, hour 10.
Yeah.
But the ending just drug on and on and on. And it just wasn't satisfactory and the doll just meant nothing. But I don't know. I'm probably in that 2.5 to 3 range. I do think the 2 gentlemen gave very good performances. So I'll probably just give them a 3 just for, the old senior citizen bump. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, if their acting performances weren't what they were, then I would be in the 2 to 2.5 range, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Those 2 guys did so good. Big props. Final thoughts, Dustin. I think it's a solid movie. Shout out to IFC Films. Another original concept. They're bouncing around doing some things. I'm looking forward to see what else they got the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth seeing just because you're going to see something you haven't seen before, and because, like we always say, support cinema.
Absolutely. Always support cinema. We appreciate y'all tuning in, and I'm sure we'll be back. I don't know. What's the next horror movie coming out? I can't really think of nothing off the top of my head. That Samara Weaving and Ray Nicholson movie comes out next week, but it's not playing here.
I'm unfamiliar.
It says it comes out next week, the 14th, but it's not showing here.
Well, that sucks. Do better, movie theaters.
But it's going to be on digital. But I mean, it don't hit, digital movies don't hit the same.
Yeah, I agree.
It's I want to be at the theater and watch it the first time. But anywho, we appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll be back. I don't know, for whatever horror movie comes out next. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all have a good one. Go support cinema.